All right, welcome back, Athletor Podcast. Man, Chance Marsteller, dude, I have been waiting to talk to you on this podcast for a long time. So thank you, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Right on. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for-
We got to dive in right off the bat. What we do here is we talk about processes, right? Like we all know that there are successful people in all realms of life. But what I think is we're lacking in our culture is like the kind of step-by-step guide on how people got there, right? I think your path to the success that you've had to date is not very typical. Not very
No,
typical. Let's talk about the origin story of Chance Marsteller, shall we?
yeah, man. I mean, how far back you want me to start?
Well, you started wrestling when? Like when you were a fetus?
I started wrestling about the time I was 8, and I love telling people like my first story into wrestling. I was like a little chunk. I was kind of like a little fat kid, and my parents always like remind me of the story of like my first tournament. I was like bantam heavyweight, and we waited around all day long for me to wrestle because it was before they got smart and started getting kids out of the tournament faster. And there was only 2 kids in the bracket that waited around all day, and I just remember like I guess I asked my parents like hey, can I get something to eat now? They're like, no, you're finally about to wrestle. And I'm like, okay, like, and I go out there, kid double legs me off the bat, and I lay on my back and get pinned in like 4 seconds, legitimately like 4 seconds,
It's hard to do.
and walk off the mat. And I go, I'm done wrestling. Can I eat now? So like that's kind of like that's like the origin story I tell people of kind of how I got started in wrestling. I didn't win very many matches when I was 8, but uh like things quickly changed. Like I mean, I remember when I was 8, like I still played football and stuff, and my uncle was around, and my brother wrestled, and I remember like being in the backyard. He'd be like trying to show us moves and stuff, and I would like say like, I'm not a wrestler, I'm a football player. I don't like wrestling. And then next thing I know, like I actually started training with him a little bit, and then when I was 9 years old, we set a goal. Kind of, I would say I set the goal. Like, hey, let's try to do 100 matches in a calendar year. So all of a sudden, like I went from hating the sport, but like I started training and actually started kind of winning a few matches. Like, and I said I want to wrestle 100 matches, and my parents dove into that right away, and um, we did it. I wrestled 100 matches, basically from the start of wrestling season until like July, August, the following year of like right around when I turned 10 in July, and I went 90-10. Like I'll never forget. Like that was like the only record I really, really ever remember. I went 90-10, and we were at a tournament. My uncle got hurt and like broke his leg, and
Who's your uncle? How did he get hurt at the tournament?
so my uncle was my mom's brother, right? And
Right.
he had moved to Pennsylvania, and was living around us. And there was like an open division, so he was wrestling like the open division.
Oh, okay.
He was doing
He
a
was
couple of
defeated.
tournaments.
Like he didn't just get banged up in the corner somewhere.
No. So yeah, he we're at this tournament. It was the AAU Ironman, and it was like where you wrestle freestyle, Greco, and folk style. Then you get this really big medal for the most accumulated points over all 3 styles, right? And yeah, so he ended up snapping his leg at this tournament, and my mom like started diving into like where can we go train kind of thing. And she found Kerry Colot's place because he was at that tournament as well. Like he had the stand set up. I didn't know who he was. The way he signed his name, my mom and I were convinced it was Kerry Volot, like because his K always looked like a V. And I didn't really like the kids that I met at the tournament. They were kind of mean to me. But we knew this one kid who used to always smack me. Like he used to be beat. Like I've never beaten him in my entire life. He didn't really wrestle in college, but he was good in high school. But so we tracked this, like, so she knew this kid was going there, and I was fighting it, and next thing I know, I'm going to Colox, and like that was kind of like my origin story. Next thing I know, I was going to Colox, and it became my entire life. I'm training there 5 days a week. I'm going to 2 tournaments on the weekends, double bracketing, and went from that 100 matches a year quickly up to 250, 300 matches a year for the next 4 years. And that, I would say, really is the quick start to, my origin story.
How do you feel about that match count with your development growing up?
So I think it's a big piece of it, man. Like, so, like I get really ticked off when I watch these high school wrestlers think they're too good to go to most of these tournaments, right? It drives me nuts because I'm like, yeah, you beat some good guys, but you guys are scoring 2 points in the match. And it gets tougher and tougher as you get to the senior level. There's matches I have where I don't score a whole lot of points, but it's part of the game. But in high school, there's not really matches where I wasn't scoring a ton of points. And I'm like, if part of going to these different tournaments and different levels is, one, I see 2 things, like a love of competition, not a fear of competition. And 2, there's tournaments you go to that are tough and you grind some out. And then like you go to tournaments that aren't that good, but like maybe you double bracket, you get some older kids, or you get really good at your offense. So the stuff you're actually working on in practice, you start hitting it on a couple of scrubs or just anybody. Next thing you know, you have confidence in what you're doing and you move forward. So for me, like, I think, I like to compete because I like to work on the things I was doing. And 2, it was never my parents driving me to go compete. Like, I drove them crazy. Like, they spent so much money on me wrestling growing up. And I remember weeks in a row, like, where they're like, you can take off this weekend. And I'd be like, no, like, there's a tournament down the road. It's at Central York, like 30 minutes down the road. Can I please go this weekend? And I would go double bracket. And next thing I know, it's like, I remember like Chad Walsh, me, and like there's like another New Jersey state champ and another PA state champ on my bracket, and like just little rinky dink tournament like right down the road. And I'm like, and a couple of those guys double bracket, so I got to wrestle them twice. And I remember weekends like that, like coming home and like, wow, I'm so glad I begged them, I could force them to make me go. Like, so I know too, like sometimes that many matches may be a little ridiculous, but like it wasn't because anyone was telling me to do it. It was just because I loved it. Like, I loved it. I was upset.
But you're coaching now. Do you think that 250, 300 matches is right for your kids? Right?
Well, again, I don't think my kids are me. There's not a ton of kids I coach that I go, there's a chance. There's somebody who loves wrestling, like Taylor or Brooks or like Zahi was at every tournament growing up, and some of these other kids, like I don't see that with every one of my kids. So, but I have different philosophies for all my kids, right? And I think, I still think a high amount of competition is good, right? We have to constantly stay in the fire, but I still think for most of my kids, like the kids I have, man, like there's some kids I have that have come from good other coaches, right? I opened up my club later and I focused on high school and middle school, and there's a lot of good coaches that these guys have come from, and that they still get a mix of me and their coach they came from. But there's a lot of, for a while, I would say, like there's a club coaching problem going on, I feel like, for like a little while, like here on the East Coast, and like it's starting to get back to like where it needs to be with like really good club coaches all over Pennsylvania. So some of these guys,
what in your estimation, what was the big problem?
I just feel like so I saw kids again, like they were getting into the competition mode, but it was only like we're only taking national level guys to every single tournament, and we're only competing against national level guys. So like there started, to me, what I saw in the club scene was a disparity between like grassroots, not very good, and then no middle ground, and then great, right? So like, where are these kids on that journey, like in that, through that process to get here? So then you see these kids when they get to high school who were like good and like only in that area, but then they really struggle their freshman year. Why? Well, no one was actually helping them technically, right? And or the basics, the techniques were a little off. So like that's what I saw. And I think, like, talking to a couple of these other coaches, they saw that issue as well. But that's my take. Like, So again, every kid I train, I think has a difference. I still think we need to compete a decent amount. I think some of my guys need to compete a decent amount, and instead of maybe 200 matches, they need to do 100 and train more.
Mhm.
But then I have some kids who just like they have a little bit of a fear of competition. They just can't finish the big matches. Well, you need to keep competing.
Mhm.
I have other guys who sometimes I want them to train more, but like a kid like Adam Waters, dude, I can't stop that kid from competing. The dude loves to wrestle, and I'm like, he just made the Greco World Team for U17s, and he like, I have to like kind of like ask him like, are you sure you want to wrestle this weekend? Yep. And I'm like, well, how do you fight that, man? Like you don't get these opportunities back.
No.
These guys, these kids don't realize you go to college and you wrestle in the school season. That's like really it. Like unless like you're pretty dang good and you want to go to the Open or make a U23 team, like and still like that's like really it. Like there's a very limited schedule, and still then the majority of the college guys still don't even get to compete because they're not starting or they're banged up. It's a long season, and so when we don't realize we don't get these opportunities back to progress in competition. So I have again different philosophy for my tiers of kids.
Sure, that makes sense because let's be honest, right? If you're doing one blanket training and development system in 2023, you're probably falling behind. Probably falling behind. So, what would you tell an athlete going to a local tournament who's probably technically, tactically, and experience-wise above the level of the tournament that he's going to? What would you tell him the process would be for him to get better, right? Like, okay, let's say we're just working on outside steps. Do you tell him like, hey, you're just working on outside steps today? Or do you tell him like, hey, you got to do a couple things, take what's given to you, but we're focusing on this.
Yeah, the second thing you said, right? Because like, I mean, it's like anything. It's like when freestyle Greco starts, and all the kids are looking for fives, and next thing you know, they're on their head, right? Because we're only looking for one thing. Like, I think so. I had like a thing with my high school coaches. Like, they were like, if we're like, if I'm way better than the kid in the dual meet. It was we want to score a lot of points, not completely embarrass somebody, but at the same time, like you have to, if you're gonna do 5, 6, 7 takedowns, all try to do all different takedowns or whatever we're working on multiple times, and then you get the pin and get off the mat. So for the elite kids, like that's kind of like my process. Like, are you doing stuff exactly like you said, are you doing stuff we're working on? If you're struggling to get to it in the match, like, did you at least mix it up? Did you not go back to the same well over and over again? And that's something Cole told me too. Like I remember like when I was like at Lockhaven and got in trouble, I was trying to work my way back in. I went to a Messiah tournament and I called him. I had like 3 or 4 tech falls, and he's watching video. He's like, dude, you did all the stuff you always do. Like, what did you get better at today? And I'm like, you're right.
How do you find that balance of, trying to get better, but also like wanting to win matches?
So so again, like there's that say, like, every kid's a little different. So like part of sometimes working the new stuff is like figuring out what you're really good at. Like at the senior level, like just because I'm working on something new, am I gonna go out and hit it in the US Open finals? Like no, like if it comes out, it comes out. But like I'm gonna go to the stuff I'm really good at, and I'm gonna get great at it. And I'm gonna have stuff, that branches off the stuff I'm really good at. So at the same time, with these younger guys, right, you want them to develop somewhat of a style, I think. And when you're doing that, so as we're like developing a style, like, and you start to see something that works, like not only do we want to continue trying new things though, but like if there is something that works, like, we do want to hammer it home, you know. But if like once my kid figures out, oh, he can fake to a dump just about anybody right into a tight waist toe or roll through a toe, and we've been doing it okay for a few months now. Okay, now it's time to add to it, right? Because then eventually somewhere down the road we're going to get to the Super 32 semis or quarters, finals, and run into somebody who's game planned us and knows, okay, he can't really wrestle off of that, you know. So yeah, we want to develop a style, but at the same time, like, and hammer it home. And then like when we start to run into slight issues with it, now it's time to really branch off of it. Like how we move down the line on it. So you know, but I
Where,
still, sorry.
where did you get that from, though, dude? I mean, it sounds very Kolot-ish, right? Because he was so good. Like, I remember sitting in a practice with him one time going, "You're good here too? Like you're good in this position too? Like you're great here? Like, holy crap, dude. Like he's just great everywhere."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I was really lucky and blessed with him to learn to be a student of the sport at a very young age. Start watching international matches at a very young age. You know, that's the like things I talk to my guys about. Like, I don't say like, "Oh, I do this, I do this." I'll be like, "Hey, you know, did you watch this match today?" I'll say some crazy names that they never heard of. I'll be like, "Hey, did you watch Aliyev today? Or did you watch, you know, Sidakov today? Like we're on outside steps. Did you watch Sidakov? You know, we're working on our guts. Did you watch Rashidov, or did you watch, you know?" And I name U.S. guys too, of course, because I think we're the greatest country. You know, like I still name a lot of our guys and guys that they can go home and look up easier. But it's fun because that's when you start to figure out who the little me's are in the room, or who the little greats are going to be. The ones who come up after practice. How do you spell that, coach? Yeah, I got 75 kids in the room that night. One kid will come up, not two. Or or some of them are getting smarter, and I tell them to look it up all the time. Like, just go home and type up freestyle world medalists, and Wikipedia will literally give you every freestyle world medalist, and you listen in the weight classes and listen in the years. Just literally just find a name that sounds cool and just watch the match. That's what I used to do. Like, I'm like, "Oh, that name sounds cool. That country looks nice. Like, I'm gonna watch that match." And next thing I know, I'm down this rabbit hole, and like I've watched the entire weight class for a cycle all of a sudden.
Dude, listen, and I gotta interrupt you. I'm sorry. One of the things that I think about probably more than I should, just while we're on foreign wrestlers, is the fact that at cadets, you almost wrestled Sadalayev.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I really truly believe at the time like I was gonna beat him. Like you know, I really feel like, you know, there was a time when I really derailed my life, and I feel like I'm slowly getting back to where I should have been. And
can you just explain that tournament? Just explain that tournament to people that aren't geeks like me and don't know what happened.
So I was at U17 Worlds, and you know, like we were on opposite sides. I was in the semis. I was wrestling this Ukrainian kid. And, I ended up, you know, it was back when there was the ball grab, and the period ended 0-0 because it was best of 3 periods. And the Ukrainian dude was he would get up big and tank out every match. Well, I was in on like 3 or 4 scores, didn't score. Fourth period goes the ball grab. He gets the clinch, gets the start on my leg. I go quad pod, and he kind of does like a crash gut, and I snap my elbow in the world semis. That dude goes on and to the finals and absolutely blows the match against Soldier Live. He like teched him the first period, was up big the second period, like 5-0. Techs were 6 and ends up losing 6-6, I think, and was up again 3-0 in the third. Like I said, this dude got tired every time. He's a big dude from Ukraine. And Soldier Live ended up beating him 6-3 in the finals. And it's crazy to watch though. Like I watch how much that dude's like, obviously he's the best pound for pound wrestler in the world. But what I remember from him was like not a lot of people probably have ever seen the videos of that dude when he was that young, but that dude would do like 1,000 fakes and a double leg was like his main move. Like I don't know the last time I've really seen him wrestle like that, but yeah. So that was Sludge Live's first world title, and I think less than 2 years later he won a senior title. I don't think he ever did junior worlds. I could be wrong. Yeah. So yeah, so that guy, and you know, but at the time, like, you know, we're both young. You don't really know who the guy is. Like, you know, he's a Russian. He was wrestling tough. And in my mind, like, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, if I'm ready to win this thing, you know, but you know, I didn't. I went a different course. That dude became the best pound for pound wrestler in the world. So, you know, I'm not gonna overspeak, like, you know, but it's Funny story. Yeah.
How do you build that culture? I guess going back to watching film and kind of encouraging your kids to watch film. Is that something you think you can kind of encourage your athletes to kind of do on their own, or is that something where they gotta want to do that? You can't really push that down their throats.
So I'm going to tie in a little bit of what I said earlier about the disparity, right, of grassroots to great, right? So in that, when I feel like this was happening for a few years here, like in PA and the East Coast, why it was happening was because, these kids had a good base of wrestling, and then they were out conditioning everybody else. They're like strength training at like 12 years old, stuff like that, and getting like just doing stuff that is definitely pushing very hard, yes, but like again, lacking of skill. So for me, like, dude, I laugh all the time. Like I tell the guys, like, dude, we don't condition here, we wrestle. Like I only get 3 days a week with my guys at club. Like you will not find us doing sprints. You will not find us doing monkey rolls. You won't find us doing any of that stuff. I only get 3 days a week. Do I think these guys need to do some of that? Yeah, but not on my wrestling mat. Now we get in wrestling shape by wrestling. So, and that's my thing. You said like Cole was the best in all situations. That's why I tell my guys all the time, like, you guys are in better wrestling shape than these guys, right? Like put them in wrestling scenarios, put them in. So like when we talk like that, and then I get them to want to watch wrestling, watch these international guys, right? And like start to develop a love of wrestling, like the pieces start to fall together a lot easier, right? Because like we realize we're wrestlers, like when I cut weight, man, I'm not getting on the treadmill. Like I'm gonna go wrestle hard. Like I'm gonna go drill. Like, you see some of these kids who are really good at wrestling. They come from somewhere into my club, and I'm like, dude, you were like, it's not going to last for long. You're 14, dude. I guarantee you when you're 16, nobody who's good is going to be wrestling you because you're no fun to drill with. You have no concept of drilling. You have no concept of working through things. You have no concept of helping your partner get better and you to get better, right? So that's like the philosophy I take towards my club. And like, we joke around that we don't condition. Like we condition, like it sucks because I feel like some of my cadet trials guys suffered because I didn't do a great job of training us for 4-minute goes. I think they're ready for 6-minute goes, but because they wrestle,
Yes, 4 minutes is not a wrestling match. I don't care. Like it's just not a wrestling match. Like that, it's nonsense.
If you're 17, dude, cadet trials I think needs to go to 6. I think cadet worlds needs to go to 6.
100%. And I don't even think schoolboy, schoolgirl, whatever they call it, needs to be 4 minutes anymore. Like why? Who is that protecting? What is that good? Like how is that good?
No, I agree. I mean, dude, younger kids can go longer anyway. Like they don't know how to get tired. So I have a 5 and 4-year-old. They don't know how to get tired.
No.
So, but yeah, I don't know who. Like I think the other thing is too but this is something I've seen that's really cool, dude. When I watch U17s and U20s now, like there's not much of a difference between the guys winning the thing. Like those. Like, how many guys won this year U20s at the Open that weren't college guys? I almost have to do it, I think. Maybe Willowdale, Meyer, Case.
They're not far off from your level, bud. These kids are really, really good. Like this kid, Meyer Shapiro, I know he's a junior, but this kid is like he can wrestle in every single position, and he's scary. He's very good.
So I was lucky enough to work with Meyer a little bit, and I used to go down to his house and stuff. Again, a dude who focused on loving the sport, wanting to know everything about the sport. How does this work? How does that work? How does I love the Askren philosophy on what in that Keegan O'Toole film about Keegan said hey Ben, how do I do this? And Ben said, figure it out. Like that's how you teach wrestling. Like that's how like take a position, exploit it. Right? When we work on a high crotch, like we're not working on the high crotch itself. I'm working on like how in the world do I get to this guy's hands today to get to it? Easy finish. Okay. All right. Well, easy getting through his hands today. I get to the leg. Well, now how do I finish? Right? Like that's Okay, he does this, I do this. He does this, I do this, right? You open up every door, right, and explore it. Then, yeah.
What are some ways that you work to kind of help your kids develop a love for wrestling?
Man, so I think like a lot of my better guys, like I try to bring them in and hang out around me like in my daily life, you know. Sometimes when we're going to the RTC, my guys were RTC eligible, like when we're going to RTC practice and like after practice, not when I'm coming, right? But like in the summertime, we'll go out, take all the guys out to eat and just like, and we BS around for, we turn a wrestling practice into an entire day excursion where, we BS around and we come home and I'll flip on the YouTube, like, and that's gonna be in the background. And they're messing around with my kids. And again, that's every time they're with my 5 and 4-year-old, Cannon and Easton, like, I feel like my guys are learning leadership skills. I'm watching them learning how they're leading, right? So I'm learning how to lead. And just kind of like, it's really hard to be around me in my daily life. If you don't love wrestling, like if you can't talk wrestling, if you like, my wife probably wouldn't be my wife if she didn't soak up the sport the way she did. Like she's all in. My wife goes off on these guys when they cut their weight wrong. Like it's funny, right? Like we're out of Vegas and these dudes are like not cutting their weight right, and Jen's like, in their ass about it. And I'm like, and they're like, what does she know? And I'm like, their parents are like, you do realize like she lives with Chance. She cooks for Chance. Like she's basically does everything with Chance for like the last 10 years. Like, like, so, when they start to see like it's a family realm, like this is a day, like I live it, right? So you take them with you on a full day excursion, like they start to realize like, oh, this dude soaks it up in every way, which or form, like, and I think that's kind of how another way of like, you get them to fall in love with it, you get them to realize like it's not this isn't one of those sports if you want to be the best, like that, you pop in and out of it. Like I somewhat got to live it most of the time. Now on the other end of things, like I also try to like have them realize like, before the US Open finals, like I'm going and hanging out with my kids before the finals, like my children, and they're in the room and being nuts and, or go out to pool with them for a few minutes, just, they're being nuts and jumping on people. And that's the other thing though, is like, I try to remind them, I'm like, dude, it's not as serious as it is, as much as I love it, as much as my everyday life. Like I'm still going to wake up and have wrestling tomorrow too. I'm still going to wake up and be Chance tomorrow. I'm still going to wake up and have my kids tomorrow. Like this thing's supposed to be fun. Like, so like when they sometimes see me, like, I get ready for the US Open finals, but he's messing around with his boys. Like why is he not locked in? That I am locked in. I already lived it every day up to this moment. I already lived it every moment up to this time I stepped on the mat. So I think that's like an important piece to show them. The other thing is that when I take them on an entire day with me, they see the sacrifices I make. I drive an hour, like people who want to whine about coming to the club an hour and a half. Dude, I'm a professional athlete and I drive an hour and a half every day. And just to my club, and then to my RTC, and then when I get done, I get home, and then I drive 45 minutes in the other direction to the club to train your kid. Like, so when they start to see, like, oh, dude, like, I said,
there's no excuses. There's no excuse.
Exactly. Like when they say, oh, I didn't have time to do homework, so I had to stay home and do it in the car, dude. Like, or I didn't have time for this. I didn't have time to watch video, but you had time to be on your Instagram. Like, when they just start to see like the different sacrifices and how I'm shoving 25 hours into 24-hour days. Okay, it's possible,
One of the things that I'm suffering with right now is teaching physical and mental toughness. There's only a few. There's a few in my room that I just need to get. Hey, you got to buck up. Is that something that can be taught?
Oh, dude, that's tough, right? Like I got goosebumps thinking about it right now as we're talking, because like I want to tell you yes, it is, but at the same time, there's days I do have the same issues you do. Like I'm like, some days I'm just like, this dude's never gonna get it. He's not tough when there's no time left on the clock, right? Like when there's no time left on the clock and you're down by one, like But at the same time, I do think it's taught. I do so this is what I think, or this is why I think this is it possible to obtain if you haven't obtained it yet. Yes. Why do I think that? Is because like in my personal life and my addiction and stuff, like I think I had it at one point, right? And I don't necessarily know if I had it like the whole time. I remember like going to the courts as like a little kid, and he used to always ask my parents if I had asthma because I could never get through the conditioning. Like I would wheeze and I would cry. Like I couldn't do it, right? But eventually I could. And then, I think I had this mental toughness and this physical toughness throughout me for most of my young career. And then, I got worse and worse in my addiction, right? Like I lost it. I lost that mental fortitude over and over again a little bit. And I remember like getting clean and like trying to get back on the senior circuit and trying to work my way up. And I'm still like, if I lost the lead, I wasn't finishing the match. I still like that was something like I had to have like notice that, and I feel like there's plenty of times now I've had matches where I've been losing and I've been able to go get points now. Even in practice, like going with some of these better guys, like I notice it more and more every day. Like the longer I get into my sobriety, I think the tougher I get because I'm getting pieces of me back personally. But the more days like I'm going with somebody who's really good, and like I might give up points and go get them right back, or there's days where I can't stand up and I'll go score now, and that wasn't a thing for a few years. So that's like, so I think it's attainable, right? Because I think I've personally gone through it. But at the same time, I struggle to figure out how to get kids to obtain that same skill that I'm going through, right? So yeah, I don't think you're the only one. Then there's different things that I do to find that mental toughness, right? Like I think I run a pretty excruciating practice that most days, and like I said we don't condition, but dude, we are in wrestling shape. Like we wrestle hard and we drill hard, and I think they build up somewhat of toughness to it. But again, like how do you mimic those situations in a match where, yeah, you can do you're down by 1 by 30 seconds all the time in practice, but if kids don't want to go get it because they're tired, they're not going to go get it. They're going to walk out there and be okay with it, right? So there's been points in times before where we've blown dual meets as teams, like as a club team, on heart, and like for what we're talking about. And there's a point in time about a year ago, I didn't let a single kid in my room wrestle live for a month. And you ask why, right? It's because to wrestle live and to get a chance to go prove yourself is an opportunity, right? So like be down by one and not be able to freaking get in a stance because you're that tired, but still be able to find a way to get in that stance and go get that point with 12 seconds left that's an opportunity, And so I didn't let my guys go live for almost a month about a year ago. And one day at practice, finally, they were just kind of getting used to drilling and technique, not being able to go live. And I go, all right, you're in on a high crotch, 10 seconds, right? Like, so it wasn't an open go. You're in on the leg, good position, 10 seconds. A couple kids didn't score. Obviously this was a good wrestling. A couple kids didn't score. I said, all right, that's it. Another week without live. You guys blew an opportunity, right? Like how many of you guys, because you were tired, it's the end of practice, you didn't know you were going live because you haven't gone live in a month. And I gave you 10 seconds of live, the first 10 seconds you've had in a month. And you didn't work hard through it. Like you didn't want that live. You didn't want to go get through that 10 seconds to get that takedown. I said, that's called squandered opportunity, and I'm like, and when we have opportunities, we can't squander them. And so, we went like about another week, and I kept bringing that topic up, and then for a while there, I saw a lot more effort, a lot more heart, a lot more wrestling to the very last second. We always wrestle like you hit a wall, you keep wrestling in our room. So that thing worked for a while. Obviously, I don't think like the guys who were there at that time, I don't think I can go back through that whole process with them again because it's like, probably end up turning into being a dead horse, but it worked that first time for a few months. That's something we talk about though, like, being allowed to do it is, an opportunity. So The other thing we do, just like toughness wise, is like sometimes dude, our dudes have like light hands. I do what we call a wake up call. Like probably most rooms, like the parents probably call it cops, but we call it a wake up call, and I'll count down out loud from 10 seconds. And basically, all it is, you're throwing hands for 10 seconds, and like you need to have your head on a swivel. It's just punching, but it should be pretty close. It should be hard clubs, and it's basically one to teach you to have your head on a swivel, but also like you're gonna touch a guy like in the first like you need what we call wake up calls. You need to wake up. You gotta get going. Like hit this dude. Like and we'll wake. Like that's how we'll get going. Sometimes every tournament we go to, we do a wake up call for 10 seconds. And you definitely see us getting looks from other parents like there's something not quite right with those dudes, and that's okay. Like,
Joel, I don't think that's working in Northern California, bud.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's flying in much of California except Fresno.
But yeah, so that's that. So we do a wake up call where it's you get pretty physical for 10, but it's 10 seconds, and I don't ever go past 10 seconds. It's 10 seconds, so they kind of know like move your head, get your head moving so you're not getting hit. And but that for the most part gets at least half the room kicked over to as far as physical readiness, ready to go.
How much of toughness would you say is competitiveness, and in a similar vein, can competitiveness be taught?
I don't know. I think a lot of it. I think a lot is competitiveness, right? Like, like just the want and will. And I think there's always those two questions: is like, which one is it that you want to have? Is it that you don't want to lose or you want to win? Like, I don't know if either one's really bad or either one's really good. But I think that's something. I think that is something that it can't be taught, but eventually it can be learned. Like some kids who just like don't win a whole lot, but they finally start seeing success, like that, that fire grows and the fire grows in that belly. So I do think that's part of it. But I think the toughness, like in the sport of wrestling, comes from like doing all the stuff it's actually something JB said to me in this, like we're sitting in the sauna last year at the OTC, and this is something like I found true for a while. It's why he's, we talk about longevity in sport. Why is he able to go and guys his age are retired, right? And why do guys eventually jump out of the sport? Well, people get sick of doing the stuff right. Like people get sick of waking up on time. People get sick of staying in a routine. People get sick of eating right. People get sick of coming to practice when they don't feel good. Just all the different things. People get sick of dealing with the stressors of life and the wrestling part. So my thing is, I think toughness comes from always doing those things that you don't want to. It doesn't have to be that you don't want to do them. It just has to be that you, again, it comes back to living, right? Living in the sport as how I think you develop that toughness of, how do I put it?
It's just things that you're supposed to do.
It's absolutely just consistency in all realms, and you don't do this or this, it's going to bleed into your wrestling. You're not doing your, like people always think it's like this wrestling, like when it's going wrong, it starts to make you dislike all these other things, or other things go wrong when you're not, it's always these factors bleed into your wrestling, right? And I think it's that consistency, like your mental toughness will go up if your school grades are good. I guarantee you, like these kids don't, fail a few tests, don't do their homeworks and stuff, and they're thinking about that in the middle of practice, they're thinking about that in the middle of the match. It's going to go down. I guarantee you, these high school 18-year-olds didn't treat their girlfriend right or something. They, did something wrong. Like that's in the back of their mind, and it's going to have an effect on how tough they're going to be at practice that day, which those amount of practices add up to what's going to happen out there on the mat. I think it's stuff like that that preparation and doing the other things right and living a good lifestyle. Again, I think that's part of the reason why my mental toughness has gotten better, right? Like I don't have to no matter how many things I do right, I'm still gonna question myself when I walk out on the mat. I still go like, did I do enough? And then, I talk to my support system around me who always tell me I'm an absolute nut job. And I'm like, dude, like, what more could you have really done right? I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. You're right. That's right. Okay, we're good. But like, so that's even when I know I'm doing everything right, I still question myself. Could I have done more? Did I do everything right? So by having that little bit of um having that part taken off my plate, makes my mental fortitude definitely go up. I got nothing to worry about, I got like no regrets, for sure. And yeah, I think when you're not doing those things right, or just all this other stuff, isn't adding up the way it's supposed to be, like we have those second thoughts. We have like that lapse in mental intensity.
Okay, you brought up your addiction, and this is something that I am absolutely fascinated by. And I say that because I and I don't want to influence your decision in making in this answer. So I won't say what I think, but do you think that there is a disproportionate amount of addicts in the sport of wrestling as opposed to other sports? Do you think that wrestling has more
So
addicts than, say, football or baseball or whatever?
I think two things on this. Yes, absolutely 100%. Like I grew, but at the same time, do I think it is changing? Yes. Do I think guys like Hale Sanderson have made that stuff change? Like guys who just like, again, a love for the sport, like be totally soaked up in the sport. Most of his guys are totally soaked up in the sport. Like that's why it's able to change. Yes. I think I grew up like under the assumption that all wrestlers are crazy, right? Like we like in order to like I was always a all or nothing kind of guy, right? So like, dude, if I'm gonna wrestle this hard, I'm gonna do this many crazy things to match it. Like nobody can think like I do. Like I think like like I know that's absolutely nuts, like as I say it out loud, but I think but I do think like there was I don't think this is everybody, man. Like I don't like I'm not I don't want to put this
No.
I don't want to put this stamp on wrestling, but I definitely feel like the sport before me, when I was young, I think there was a lot more. I think there was a lot more stuff going on, and the guys knew how to work hard, play hard, and that was kind of the mentality I grew up with. Like, work hard, play hard. Like, if I play too hard, I work harder. Then I play harder. Then I work a little harder than that. And that was always outdo it, outdo it, outdo it. But at the same token, like some of these, I've seen a lot of wrestlers pass away from addiction, like way too many, that were they were high achieving athletes, and I I I don't think addiction discriminates in any sport. Like I think it's in all sports, man. Like, but I for some reason I do feel strongly for a long time that wrestlers were struggling. Really successful wrestlers were struggling really bad for a while if they didn't have, because like sometimes wrestling's like it's a little bit blue collar. Some of these guys don't come from like the right role models, but like they got good at the sport. They worked hard and they had that high achieving mentality again, which aligns with addiction a little bit, right? We're addicted to the sport a little bit, and um, sometimes we have those role models, like those are the ones we see go off the course, um, and it's a double-edged sword, right? But again, if you have a high achieving mentality, you're around other high achieving mentality people that have your best interests involved, who know how to live the good life, like it's. But we're seeing more and more of that today. I think I really do think so that it has changed. But I do feel when I was younger, I was under the impression of this. Again, though, I was young and thought I knew how the world works. So maybe I'm one of the few people who think this, but I don't think that's true.
Hey, so here's the real question then. I'd agree with you. I think we have a disproportionate amount of addiction in our sport. Do we attract addicts or do we create them?
Man, that's tough because I don't feel like if I answered either one of those, that's a good answer for the sport. Like I think that it's such a personal sport and it's so intertwined that we're able to see it faster or hear about it faster than some other sports at local levels all the way up to national levels because of the type of connection our sport has. That's my answer.
That's fair.
That's I feel like hard to follow up that question here. I think that's such an interesting take because I mean, I just like you said, like wrestling becomes such a focus of your entire life. Like it's not just, oh, I show up, to do the dual meet on Tuesday, and this is what it is. It's like you said, it's your entire life. It's your diet, it's your nutrition, it's your sleep, it's your everything that goes into it. And so I think it does kind of create a very interesting kind of dichotomy of like it does take over your life, and it very much can become like what you get sucked into and get addicted to. But yeah, I don't know. Hard to follow up that question.
So I'll give you like one, like if I can just follow that up. I think that one other thing is like, we talk about like when I say like I have my wrestlers watch me with my own sons, right? Like or just have them at the house, like and spend like maybe I'm bickering with my wife, maybe we're spending good time together. I don't know, like but they kind of just see like me living like life outside the wrestling room, and they go, "Oh, he is more than the wrestler. He can identify as more than the wrestler." Does that mean I don't live it every day, every second of every day? No, but I can enjoy those moments outside the wrestling world, right? Like um, I watch like like I think those are the people you see the smiles on their face. Like I really pay attention to what some of these athletes do, like because I try to take a chunk of all their lifestyles. And like I watch my good friend Nate Jackson, man. Like I watch. Like him and I will bring the kids into the room sometimes. Like he'll have one of his daughters, and I'll have one of my sons if the other kids are at school, like in the room messing around, like asking us to open up their applesauce in the middle of us going live goes, falling over because we can't breathe anymore. And we remember, kid needs applesauce. Like it's just wrestling, you know. And then it's like, so, or I watch like it's cool to watch like so like David Taylor, like I feel like I see him a lot, like doing stuff outside of wrestling. It's like, man, like what, like or on like a family vacation, or JB's on doing a family thing, or I watch all these guys, and it's like, I think these people are able to identify as other things besides a wrestler, and that is why they're able to smile when they wrestle. That's why they're able to be good to go, ready to go when they wrestle, in a positive way. But at the same time, like I think the best of the best are able to identify other than a wrestler. But when we talk about living it, it doesn't mean I have to be wrestling when I'm on with my boys. But I'm disciplined in the fact of I'm not gonna go do something wrong, or if we go out to eat, I'm gonna get this, or if how am I gonna treat my sons? Like that's still discipline towards my sport, right? It's still discipline towards my wrestling lifestyle, but it doesn't mean I can't identify over here.
It seems like there's a larger like theme within the world of wrestling of finding balance of it's this and I wrestle and I want to win, but at the end of the day it's not the entire world of winning or losing this wrestling match.
Absolutely. And I think that's important. Like someone said to me the other day, like they said, Chance, I think you're wrestling so much better because like you have these other things in your life that are good, and you're able to wake up and go, hey, if I decide to stop wrestling today, I have all this good stuff, and it's stuff that we can all create for ourselves, if we're able to again realize like we're more, we're more, you know. If we're this high achieving in this sport, like we are more, like we can do so much more. So, and again, but still at the end of the day, what's my love? Wrestling. What is it all going to come back around to? It's going to lead to better wrestling.
Hey, I want to get like kind of nitty gritty here for a second.
You know what? I guess.
All right, fair enough. I do enjoy the details of the sport. How have things, so since you're doing things right in off the mat, how have things changed, if at all? How has it affected things like your pre-match routine? How has it affected your like the hour before competition? Has it changed that at all?
I think no, a little bit, but not so much. Again, these were, I was lucky enough to have pretty good habits wrestling wise instilled in me at a young age, but it did change in the fact of having a lot more trust. I put a lot, I really I do feel like my wife's faith have gotten a lot deeper. When so that piece has changed. And then the other piece though is that I already hit along it earlier. Like I'm able to get rid of these terrible thoughts. Like, dude, I don't know, dude. If anyone tells you they don't get them, no matter how good they are, like I don't believe them, because and I've never heard of anyone who's really good say they don't get like thoughts that are pounding their head a little bit. But the greats, I think, are the ones who can get rid of them the fastest, right? And turn them over. But I still get them. But again, it's like that. I'm not going to run up to one of my support system people like an hour before and be like, hey, I'm having this thought. Like, do you think I'm doing enough? No, like in that hour leading up, it's like that, you're not going to run up to somebody really and say, like, but I'm able to start to dissolve those thoughts a lot faster. I'm able to go, dude, we're here for a reason. Like I've been able, like, we're here for a reason. You're doing the things right. And that's why. So I feel like that hour before. The other thing is that like when I'm doing things right, man, like again, I talk about being identifies other things and one thing on the senior circuit that I think is different, like let's talk a little more like the week of, is that dude, you see some of these young kids, and this is the thing I'm still trying to teach my club athletes. It's like, dude, they won't eat, like they'd rather sit around all day and not work out, they'd rather be miserable. I remember being like that even like on like one of my first senior tours, like when I was still using, and like just like cut weight, go to my room, lay down, be miserable, like that's it, and like if we go somewhere, like we're checking it out, we're exploring it. I'm gonna smile the whole time, like it could be worse. I could not be here, and so like I make it a action to goof around, smile. Reese Humphrey, like, he's one of my coaches, and like he'll bust my balls sometimes, like, oh, we got grumpy Chance, and like so and I really don't feel like he's really seen too much of that guy a lot in the last year. Like it just, the more I do this, the more that it gets better. Like sometimes the weight cut's tough, but like at the same time, I feel like for the most part, like I'm trying. I'm not even faking it, but I am kind of forced. Like I'm gonna fake it, force it to be like in a good mood, like because like this is we're lucky to get to do these things. We get to do at this level, and so again, like if. Like how the heck are you gonna go to Egypt and not go on a walk? How are you gonna go to Croatia and not go? It's the same thing though. If I drive down to Maryland instead of Pennsylvania, like I'm not just gonna get up and go like, check it out. Okay, nice day out, and smile a little bit and actually talk to the people that are around me, and then it just makes like that last weight cut that much easier. It just makes all of that stuff much easier, more enjoyable. And then the other thing is you're more enjoyable to be around for the people that are helping you. It's hard for like, dude, as a club coach, dude, like some of these dudes, man, like I emotionally am attached to most of my guys. It's tough not to be. It's that type of sport. And man, when they're miserable, it's like, dude, I'm miserable too. Like, and I think that teaches me on my end, like, dude, don't be miserable from my coaches, for Kendall and Reese. Like, like it should be a good time for everybody. Like we're about to go, making it, win a world title. Like if we're gonna do that, like everybody should be having fun. Like
when you're When you're not feeling well, what are some ways you try and like force your mood to change? I know that you mentioned like, oh, I'll go out and go for a walk. Is there anything else that you'll think about doing to kind of like force a change in your mood to like be a little bit more positive?
I think just in general, that's part of it, right? Like instead of like forcing moves, like are you for me, like, and this is part of like being an addict too, like, you know, being able to identify things about yourself much faster. Um to flip an internal switch, like, so I like not necessarily a key, but um like that's that easy just to go, oh, I'm just gonna flip this around and be happy. No, like that's, but at the same time, just noticing. I think the biggest thing is being able to notice, like, dude, am I just being downright like miserable right now? Do I hurt? Like, what? Like, if that's the case, like if I recognize, like, I think recognition is the biggest thing, right? Like, so I don't necessarily have like keys all the time. Like, what am I gonna go do? Like, you know, sometimes it is maybe I need a nap. Sometimes I gotta go talk to somebody. Sometimes go on a walk. Whatever it is. Sometimes maybe it's make a plan to make a plan. Like, you know, on how we're gonna get this thing done. Um, but I think the biggest thing is just is the quicker you can recognize, the quicker you can get out of, you know.
Put your finger on it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that actually makes sense, man. Like, call it what it is. Call it what it is immediately. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm in a dog shit mood because I haven't had calories, because, you know, whatever, or because I'm sore, or because of whatever. Okay, well, that's fine. I get to be that for the next 5 seconds.
Right.
I get to be that for the next 10 seconons, and that's it.
Yeah,
Okay?
like how long you want to hold on to that thing, right?
Cool, great, good. How much good is that really doing us right now? Probably not. All right, Joel Shaw, let's bring it on home here. I got one more question for you, Chance Marsteller. And you have, let's call it 3 minutes to answer. All right. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
Oh, geez, give me a second. Oh man, dude, I don't know. It's cliche. Like, I don't think I would change anything, man. There's so many moving parts to this sport. There's so many different egos in this sport, and that's what makes it great. You know, like there's just my path. It was A to Y real fast, back to B, all over the place. I'm starting to finally find my way to get to Z, right? And there's gonna be some guys that train that go A, B, C, D, and there's gonna be other guys like me. I think the only thing I would change is like is what's already starting to happen is you know, just for our athletes who have been successful to be more forthcoming with you know, like how they were able to do it and actually go in depth with things. I think there's some really good athletes who you know, don't really give the kids the magic of how they really got to where they got to. You guys can figure out what I mean by that, but and I think for me, like personally, my story, like, dude, there had to be more people out there that are like, maybe I could have got over faster, you know, and stuff like that. Like, besides that, the wrestling part, man, like I said, I think there's really some great club coaches like coming around. College wrestling's always fun to watch. International wrestling's great. There it is. There's your answer. There it is. I wish it was all freestyle.
Ooh, more freestyle.
Yeah.
We've gotten a couple of those. But I do appreciate the first part of your answer quite a bit. I think guys like I am gonna call it what it is. I am gonna say Kale could probably be more forthcoming with how he and his guys have had success. And I think if he were, maybe guys like you would have come to the realization that that was a better way to do things a lot sooner. And I'm not in the sport anymore, meaning I'm not necessarily media. I'm not necessarily coaching at a high level. I'm coaching high school kids now. So I can say it. And I think that there's a detriment that's done a lot in secrecy. There's done like the secrecy does no good.
No, I agree, but yeah, I wasn't calling it. I'm not gonna call it kill.
I know.
I have my shot there and I blew that. So
Yeah, I will. I'm just saying I will, because you and I will go back and forth as much as possible. Trust me.
But no, I do think like I think the more we share our successes and our downfalls, and the more sport grows. I mean, look how much the sport has grown since media has become more a thing. Like, look how much, when I say the sport has grown, I mean, again, look at that disparity between U17s and U20s. It's not men and boys anymore, look at the guys like ready, like to rock at younger ages and make these jumps. And I think that that comes from the knowledge that's been able to be shared. Like there's been a lot more media coverage and there's a lot more science behind the sport, and just and stuff bouncing off each other. So I think, but with all things like that's like with how you got good at wrestling, how'd you get good at life, how'd you get through things in life, and that stuff. So that's obviously what I did to myself when I went through, like that's more of my stand that I take. But yeah, no, but I love wrestling, dude. Like I absolutely love it. Like, and I want my athletes to love it, and the people who watch it to realize how much more goes into this thing than that 6-minute match you see on TV. So yeah, the more we get of that, I think the more we'll have this whole world loving the sport, the way some of us do.
100%. All right, Chance, tell people about your club. Tell people how they can get a hold of you if they need to. Tell them any of the particulars that they need to know about Chance Marsteller.
Thanks, Mike. So I run my own club called Stellar Trained. It is Stellar with an ER, not like the word, because it's like my last name. Just for anybody who still tells me I spell it wrong. That was the point. We're based out of Reading, Pennsylvania. I run my club at Alberta University. We have a couple of big things coming up. If anybody's interested, we have a Fargo camp coming up with overnight options, June 30th to July 2nd. Our club runs Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays. I'm typically the guy running practice unless I'm out of town. I will run every practice unless I'm out of town. Quickly, one of the fastest growing clubs in the country. We had 6 Pennsylvania State champs this year, 8 Pennsylvania State finalists, like 27 high school Pennsylvania State medalists. We had our first world team member this year. And club's based on morals of both sides of life. I want to teach my athletes to be the best they can be better than what I was, and do it with the least amount of mistakes possible, do it with the least amount of issues, since that's not what I did. That's kind of why our logo is it's a dragon and a sword. And the dragon is the S for Stellar, the sword's the T for trained. But really, not a whole lot of people know this. It was supposed to be a kind of the serpent and the cross type of look, but dragon and sword's a little more for everybody. But I live both sides of life, and I want to see people be as successful as they can be. We run a world championship mentality type room where, okay, you might not be a world champion one day, but you have all the tools that can make you a world champion in life, that can make you millionaire one day if you apply these things to life, or that can teach you how to run and operate a good family, a good business, whatever it is. I say run and operate a family, but be a family, person. So that's the type of club we are, and I think that's why we've been successful. And if you ever want to get a hold of me, we have a Facebook page for Stellar Trained, or my Instagram page is just chance.marsteller. Most of our information is updated on there. And on this platform, you can find my email and my phone number.
Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.